Ahoy! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another Intel Report, the series that one by one corners all of the units in Command & Conquer Rivals in an alleyway and shakes them down for loose change. If you enjoy my content and want to talk about Rivals or other games, mobile and otherwise, come join our community on the Gaming Galleon Discord. If you fancy becoming one of the epic crew supporting this channel, find me on Patreon. But otherwise, hitting like and subscribing tells YouTube that I'm popular and helps direct more folks my way. All of this is super helpful to my channel and greatly appreciated. Anyways, with all that shameless plugging out of the way, let's jump right into our intel report on the new Brotherhood of Nod unit, Mutant Marauders. Mutant Marauders are hulking mercenaries that have been ravaged by Tiberium mutation. The largest type of forgotten mutants, the Marauders' super strength and size allows them to wield powerful improvised laser weapons built from scavenged obelisk parts. These strapping and meaty specimens are infantry built from the hand of Nod and are a little slower moving than other infantry. They also cost a little bit more, but this is because their laser weapons punch whopping great big holes into enemy ground vehicles, and they have a health pool that dwarves other infantries. Seriously, in comparison, most infantry units have health puddles. Now, because of this, Mutant Marauders take some hefty anti-infantry firepower to remove at any form of speed. Sure, rifleman squads will do it, but not before you turn old and grey and, well, okay, it's not quite that slow, but Mutant Marauders will hold their ground for an astonishing long time, even in the face of shockwave troopers and the like. Of course, this is only one aspect to the Mutant Marauders. The other, probably more exciting aspect being the colossal laser cannons made from scrap that they carry on their shoulders. These weapons deal heavy damage to enemy ground vehicles, making Mutant Marauders a fantastic option for holding pads when your opponent is building war factory units. With their health pool and their damage input, they will hold off all but the most dedicated anti-infantry push. In fact, these brutes will stand their ground against most anti-infantry vehicles pretty well. Whilst they're not quite able to take out Wolverines or Widowmakers, and they do of course die horrifically against flame tanks and disruptors. But any vehicle less than these will be scrapped before the Marauders are pushing up the daisies. To best utilise your Marauders though, you need to understand that they are not hunters. GDI jump jet troopers are fast moving and able to close with their prey quickly, and GDI grenadiers have their EMP effect to help trap their targets. Mutant Marauders do not have this capability, meaning you will need to use them differently. I like to compare them mentally to tick tanks. They're not great at chasing down units, but they are stubborn to remove once in position, especially if supported with something which covers their weaknesses, and more of that later. Speaking of weaknesses, how do you effectively deal with Mutant Marauders once your opponent has them out on the field? In a word, aircraft. Whilst capable of blasting vehicles to smoke, apparently their weapons are too heavy to aim upwards. They can't target air units. Now this means that Talons, Drone Swarms and Venoms are perfect for removing them. Of course, not everyone runs air, for some reason, so your alternative then would come down to anti-infantry infantry. Shockwave troopers, snipers, even riflemen will deal with them, but you'll likely need a couple of squads at once to remove them quickly. Now you can technically also kill them off with things like rhinos or cyber wheels, but again you will need multiple and it's just flat out not a great trade-off. Use infantry or air if you can, unless you just happen to already have access to anti-infantry tech like we mentioned earlier, Widowmakers, Wolverines, flame tanks or disruptors. Alright, so that's the basics of the Mutant Marauders covered, and now you should have a decent understanding of what these laser ogres do and how to destroy them. What kind of decks do they work in? Well, first of all, I think it's well worth talking about the excellent synergy that they have with Confessors. Apparently, Wasteland mutants enjoy the company of devout religious nutjobs. Who knew? Whatever the case, Confessors wreck aircraft and infantry, which Marauders can't, and the Marauders conversely punch through vehicles that otherwise the Confessors would struggle with. Oh, and with that Confessor buff, the Marauders do their job better than usual, of course. So of course my first deck suggestion therefore is going to be a variation on the one suggested in my Confessor intel report. If you like the sounds of this deck, go watch that video too. It'll give you a better understanding on how Confessors actually operate. Now this deck is a Hand of Nod opener, with laser squads being our main scouting option. These do deal well with early vehicle rushes and are capable of dealing with cyber wheels and war dog openers. The Cyberwheels intel report details how you can do this easily, so check that out too. In fairness, why not just set aside an afternoon to watch the entire playlist? But anyways. Flame Troopers are our de facto anti-infantry option early on, should your opponent respond to your laser squad with lots and lots of infantry. The Marauders are capable of dealing with heavier vehicles quickly, and if you have a laser squad hanging around, the 2v1 they can afford there makes the whole situation absolutely terrifying. Now, our War Factory in this deck contains attack bikes and stealth tanks. Both of these are primarily for dealing with aircraft that get in your way, but can be used for quickly hunting down vehicles that your Marauders aren't quite capable of chasing. Finally, the Temple of Nod contains the Confessors. Now, the aim of this deck is ultimately to get the Confessors and Marauders onto launch pads with a stealth tank prowling around the battlefield for that little bit of extra punch. This is an incredibly tough setup to shift, and those pads are pretty much yours once you are set up. Now, while Seth and Oksana are decent options for this deck, my personal preference is actually for once Kane. Why? Because the deck is very heavy on the defensive, but can struggle in late game against tech units like Widowmakers and Wolverines that can deal a lot of damage to your infantry. Now, normally you'd need to slam your stealth tanks into those units for heavy damage so that your Marauders can then finish them off with minimal return. But with an obelisk nearby, those units get blasted to smithereens quickly. Now, the second deck I would suggest is a Jade Chem variant. This one's a Cyberwheels War Factory opener with attack bikes for anti-aircraft duty and early anti-vehicle. Buggies give that little bit of extra anti-infantry and anti-aircraft support, and stealth tanks are here to give the heavy anti-aircraft punch that this deck so sorely needs. The Hand of Nod then contains Chem Warriors and Mutant Marauders only. The concept here is to trick your opponent into lots of anti-vehicle units, only to then come at them with your infantry. Preferably with you securing the first missile, then building your Chem Warriors for a base kill. Check out my Jade and Chem Warriors video for more info on this strategy. Now, you can also use the Mutant Marauders as heavy pad holders against War Factory units that they've inevitably built, whilst your chems go and spray things. This whole luring your opponent into thinking you're just running vehicles and then pulling out some powerful infantry is great fun. Seriously, I wish I could see the look on their face when it first happens. Of course, as much fun as this Jade Chem deck can be, it's an expensive deck that may struggle higher up the leagues. As such, a third more aggro style deck would be this one. This is a militant opener for cheap scouting. Militants can 2v1 units like Flame Troopers and are great at tanking and body blocking vehicle rushes. They're also pretty handy at stopping a jump jet trooper rush in its tracks. Laser Squad's a good early anti-vehicle with a bit of anti-aircraft if Talons or drones hit the early field, and then Mutant Marauders round out the Hand of Nod nicely. Here they're used as heavy vehicle punch and as pad holders. The War Factory then contains attack bikes and stealth tanks, mainly for anti-aircraft duties, but also to punch units like Wolverines that the rest of your deck may struggle against. Finally, Banshees are here to hunt enemy ground vehicles, especially things like MLRS, Giga Cannons and artillery, but they do also assist with heavy air like Basilisks and Kodiaks. Using Seth, preferably, just makes the deck a bit more affordable, and being able to drill pod Flame Troopers up helps you contest distant pads when your own are well secured with Marauders and other units. Now, the final part of every Intel Report video is of course a Shoutcast replay featuring the new unit to showcase it in action. So let's jump right into that. During the testing for Cyberwheels, it became apparent that it is possible to do an entirely War Factory Nod deck. As such, during testing for the Mutant Marauders, I thought I would give that a go. So that's what I'm running in this particular deck. Jade is running the competitive version of the Mutant Marauder 3-2-1 deck. So you see here, I open into Cyberwheels. Jade opens up into Militants. She quickly spots my Cyberwheels, moves them backward, and then with a masterful piece of positioning there, ultimately manages to kill off one of my Cyberwheels units, whilst her Laser Squad takes almost no damage. As such, of course, it is time for me to pull out a Chem Buggy. Now here, Jade immediately pulls the Mutant Marauders out. She takes them onto that back pad, meaning that if I want to claim that pad, I'm going to need to move a vehicle into those Mutant Marauders. A Tick Tank was my next thought because I wanted to get that central pad held as best as I could. get that burrowed in and dealing with those bikes. Unfortunately, the chem buggy there did not spray at the target that I wanted it to. I completely mismicroed that, and I'm a little bit screwed. I also bring the flame troopers up into the top left. Probably should have brought them onto that central pad, but there we go. Those mutant marauders quickly move in, and I'm too busy trying to focus on what to build that I ultimately forget to move my flame troopers. It's a bit of a naff time for me right now. They're absolutely massacred there by the flame troopers and militants of Jade. As you can see, this missile is just not going in my favour. Those mutant marauders are set up. I am going to have a tough time trying to deal with those now. So my next thought is to ultimately bring in a chem buggy and consider trying to 2v1 those mutant marauders with something else. As it happens, you can see here that 2v1 of mutant marauders and laser buggies just deals insane amounts of damage. And with Jade moving then the mutant marauder to the cyber wheels at the bottom right, you can now also see quite clearly how long it takes mutant marauders to go down. I'm hoping now that I can pull off into holding 3 pads here, holding the bottom pad there with the flame troopers, with the cyber wheels against the flame troopers. The top pad I was hoping that I could just hold it indefinitely, but the mutant marauders come in and really wreck my day, clearing the bottom right pad. They're about to clear the top left pad. Those chem buggies ultimately are not going to be able to clear these pads in time because mutant marauders just have an insane amount of health. The tick tank was a mistap, but also an attempt to hold the middle pad once I got it out. But it's just not enough. It is just not enough. Those mutant marauders have entirely too much health for me to be able to clear away in time, and thus the second missile and the game goes to Jade.